Hey everybody, what's going on? It's James here with Crypto Common Sense, and I have your Bitcoin/cryptocurrency update for Friday, February the 14th. Before I jump into the content for this video, please do me a huge favor, hit that thumbs up button. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to click that bell icon to get notifications when I release new updates. By the way, thank you everybody for subscribing. Broke 3,000 subscribers over the last week. I'm not exactly sure when, but that was really awesome to see, so I appreciate you. So I've got a list today. I'm actually going to try to be a little more organized and stay on point so that I can cut down on the editing time. And the first chart that I want to look at is actually the weekly Bitcoin chart. So basically on this weekly chart, I've got a couple different indicators. We're going to talk about these one by one. So the first thing I want to talk about is just the price action and the general shape, right? Talked about this in a video, maybe a couple of videos over the last few weeks. I do believe that Bitcoin is trying to put in this triangle, and I think that it's very possible that we do maybe get some kind of scam wick up to the top, maybe not. Price action looks pretty weak right now. We'll talk about that more on the daily and the 4-hour chart in just a minute. But I think it's entirely possible that everybody who's calling the 6,400 the bottom may end up disappointed, and this really may come back down to the bottom of this triangle, which would be somewhere between $5,000 and $6,000 and would line up really nicely with that 200-week moving average. Again, right now that's around 53.64, but it's going to keep curling up. Turn my magnet off. It'll keep curling up as time goes along because price is above it. Okay, so very possible that we will see that come back down and test that. I'm not, shorting Bitcoin, trying to ride it down to that level. I'm still in my long spot positions, and I'm just doing my scalp trades until I have a better feeling for what's going on in the market. So, for example, before I went to bed this morning, I longed Bitcoin at 10,122, I think it was, and closed that trade out for a nice little win. It was a small trade. I closed it before I went to bed. It closed it at like 10,170. It's like a little 0.5% trade, so not anything to write home about. But it was a long. So hey, for all the people that get mad at me for being bearish, hey, I took a long, right? It was actually running in the resistance, which is why I closed it and I had to go to bed. But yeah, overall, price action still looks pretty good. I still think there's lots of money to be made. There's lots of volatility going on. So that's really good for the smaller time frame trading. But bigger time frame, I'm going to be watching this triangle. Also going to be watching this triangle on the RSI, which is not really being talked about by anybody, but essentially this goes back to December of 2017, and it is somewhat concerning on a larger time frame because essentially what we're doing is putting in these lower highs, but we've got this higher low here. So is it possible that this pumps all the way up here? Sure it is. It doesn't mean that it has to do it right now. What we might see is this come back down, find support on the top of this box, then go back up there, or we might see it fall back down to the bottom of the triangle, right? Again, I think if it falls to the bottom of the triangle, I don't think it's anything to panic about. I think that's probably just going to be coinciding with price coming to the bottom of the triangle on price action, okay? So time will tell how that plays out. The one thing that I see about this that would make me hesitate opening new long positions on a swing trade is the momentum is actually not that great. You can see on our momentum, basically our triangle is already running into resistance. We've got the upward sloping the upward sloping bottom trend line and the downward sloping top trend line, and we're sitting right at the top of it right now. So not going to open any swing longs or anything like that, but I will be keeping an eye on that momentum, and I would recommend that you do the same. Okay. As far as RSI goes, first place I'll be looking for support. If it pulls back, I'll be looking to see how it acts if it gets to the top of this bear market box. Okay. So that is the weekly chart as far as price action goes, as far as triangles go and things like that. The other thing I want to talk about on this weekly real quickly is this volume profile, okay? So this is actually the volume profile going back to the beginning of 2017. And you can see that, guys, we still have a pretty big gap sitting down here between this $4,500 and $6,000 area. That still concerns me a great deal. But the other thing that I want to point out here is right now, 8,300-ish is really where that volume is acting as support at. So it could be that, that's an area to watch. And if it finds support there, it may be that it never comes back down here. And it may be that it never retraces to the 61.8 fib either, right? Could find out that this is the new floor and that we just go up from here. So $8,300 is a price that I would keep an eye on if price decides to pull back to that area. Okay. Let's jump over to a daily chart. So this is the daily chart for Bitcoin. A couple different things I'm watching here. The main one that I'm watching is this rising wedge in RSI. You can see here if I zoom in on RSI, it's basically staying right inside that wedge, getting tighter and tighter and tighter. So it looks like a move is imminent, and we'll know pretty soon which way this thing is going to go. I have a feeling that this is really being topped out, and there's a lot of profit taking going on, and this probably will pull back before it goes much higher. In fact, I don't think it's going to go any higher. I think the top is in. Very dangerous to say that. Very dangerous to call that. I'm obviously not just going to open up a short just because I think that. I've talked about this in the past. I trade setups. I don't trade my feelings. I feel like the top is in, but I don't have an actual setup that I would feel comfortable opening a short position at this time. Okay. We are in an uptrend here, so if I'm going to short it, if I'm going to fight the trend, it needs to be almost perfect, and I don't see anything that would make me want to do that. So I am going to watch that rising wedge, though. The other thing that kind of stands out to me about this is the volume is just not great, guys. I talked about this a couple of days ago. If you look here, this was the buying volume for yesterday, 8,000 Bitcoin. Okay, to put that in perspective, back here in October, the pump had 53,000 volume. Right, so the volume is trash, which is normally a sign that the move is running out of steam. If you're going down and the sell volume is bad, usually that means you're running out of steam. If you're going up and the buy volume is bad, usually you're running out of steam. And that's one reason that I really should have caught this bottom back here, even if it was a local bottom, because the sell volume was trash. Right, I should have noticed that, picked up on it, and flipped bullish before I did. So that's just live and learn. You can learn from my mistake, and it'll serve you well in the future. Okay, we are coming up on February 17th, which is, of course, the date that Mercury goes into retrograde. Again, not my wheelhouse. I really don't understand that stuff. Somebody left a great comment saying that it's like a 3-week period, but it actually there's like 10 days before and after the period where stuff can start getting wonky. So maybe we're already starting to see some of that. I really don't know. It's more of a I don't know. It's more of an interesting thing, a side note for me. It's not really something that I'm trading, okay? But when I look at this fractal that I drew up and showed you guys in the last couple of videos, this is the fractal that, if it plays out, will consolidate along support and then fall at the bottom and finally get down to the real support down here around 5,400 or so. If I look at this, what was interesting was the day before yesterday now, it was a perfect match. Now that's just a coincidence, right? But if you look, this purple line actually lined up perfectly with the top and bottom of that candle. You see where the bottom and the top is? Now watch this. See that? Perfect match. Perfect match. Of course, yesterday wasn't. Okay. So I'm going to watch this. The interesting thing about this fractal is, look at this. The 17th is the last high before it actually dumps. So it does line up with that Mercury retrograde theory. Okay. The other thing that's interesting about this fractal, though, and really about the chart itself, is, maybe this plays out, maybe it does go down here, but maybe not. Maybe what we're really seeing is a triangle, right? If you guys are noticing this, this would be the top of the triangle, and this would be the support for the triangle, and this is actually could be just a giant ascending triangle, just like we had a descending triangle back through here, right? We had the descending triangle. This could be an ascending triangle, and it could be that it just comes back down, tests the bottom of this area, down around 8,500 bucks or so, right? And then moves back to the top of it. And then if you get a breakout, our target would be somewhere around, get this to the bottom here, 4,100 bucks. Set that up on top of that. 4,100 bucks would be right around 14 to 15,000 bucks, right? But I don't think it's going to break out right now and go up there. I think if it does break out, I think we'll see the pullback first to support, right? Which again could be around 8,500 bucks. So another thing to kind of keep an eye on. Lots of stuff to watch, okay? You guys know that I trade Fibonacci levels a lot. So we haven't quite got to the 61.8 from wick to tail. It's up around 11 grand. But somebody in the Facebook group pointed out that we have got there from close to close. Now, I don't trade. It's kind of weird, really, when you think about it. I don't trade Fibonacci levels on the closes. I trade a lot of trend lines from close to close. But Fibonacci levels, I usually use tails and wicks. But if you are using closes, then we have hit perfectly, or right as close as you can get, right, on that 61.8 fib. It was 10,516, and it looks like we topped that at 10,522. So could be a very cliche golden pocket short opportunity right there. Again, it's not a short that I'm going to take unless I see a setup. I don't see one yet. Okay, so that's kind of what I'm seeing on the daily chart. On the 4-hour chart for Bitcoin, still watching this bottom trend line here, right? I've removed the yellow line because it's no longer relevant in my opinion. If you watched yesterday's video, there was a yellow line in here. I think this is the top of our area. This is our resistance. I think this is support. So I'm going to watch this and see what happens. If it breaks that north, I'll look for long positions. If it breaks south, I'll look for short positions. Okay. The one thing that I would point out on this 4-hour chart, guys, is the volume is just absolutely terrible. And this is why people are getting trapped here. They're trapping bears, right? Stopping out bears. I talked about this yesterday. I didn't short this. I longed it, right? Even though it broke support, I went long on it because the volume wasn't that great, right? This wasn't a big volume bar. It looks big because it's kind of, scaled to the bars around it. So it's like, oh, wow, that was pretty big. But it wasn't, right? As you go back in time, you can see what big bars look like. They're way up here around 7,000, 8,000. And that sell volume on that bar was only about 4,000, 4,500-ish, okay? So I longed there. I didn't believe it. It was a bull, I thought it was a bear trap. It was. Made some money. And then last night when it pulled underneath it, I thought it was a bear trap. The volume was terrible, really terrible. See this? No follow through in the break. So I did long it, but the one thing that I did differently on this one was instead of writing it up more, I actually took profits right at resistance for like 0.5%, and then I went and watched Netflix until I went to sleep. Okay, should have stayed at my desk and should have stayed in the trade longer, and it would have worked out quite nicely. I could have got 2 or 3% off of it. But again, it looked like a bear trap to me. It didn't look like it was a real break of support because there was no volume, right? There was no follow through on that. So once we break support or resistance and you see a big old volume bar, that's probably going to be a legit move, and it's probably going to continue in that direction for a while. Okay, whether that's up or down, we'll have to wait and see. So that's all I've got for you on Bitcoin itself, but I do want to take a look at a couple other things. I want to talk about dominance real quick on Bitcoin. And if we look at the dominance, guys, a couple things to pay attention to, okay? I'm going to get rid of volume. I don't really need it for dominance. I still feel like we're inside of this ascending triangle on the dominance, okay, which is actually a bad sign for alts long term. It's a good sign short term because obviously, there's been this little mini alt season where a lot of alts are up 100 to 200%. We had this upward sloping line that we fell through. It's not really relevant right now, but it's just something to watch in the future. Is when you find lines on RSI, they are important, right? If you started longing alts when this thing broke, you'd have done very well. But overall, I still think that it's very likely that this thing is probably going to hit this bottom line and then probably turn back north. Okay, so a lot of these alts that are pumped 100 and 200%, they're probably going to start taking back a lot of the gains that they've given people. And if people haven't taken profits, they're going to be really sad. Okay, because I do feel like what's going to happen is Bitcoin is going to pull back, maybe pull back 10, 20, 30%. And then the alts are going to pull back 50, 60, 70%, right? Where they lose dominance versus Bitcoin. We're getting RSI. This is a weekly chart. RSI is getting very close to oversold territory, and we're getting very close to the bottom of the triangle. So that's what I expect to happen. I expect Bitcoin to pull back and alts to pull back even more, okay? If we look at alts, I'm just going to look at a couple alts. We'll look at Ethereum because I want to show you guys a cool thing that you can do. First off, Ethereum is pumping like crazy, so you're seeing a lot of the Ethereum tokens, like what do they call them, ERC tokens or ERC20, something like that. You're seeing a lot of them pump as well. I really feel like that's because Ethereum is pumping. So if you're holding those type of tokens, you may take a look at them and consider, I'm not telling you what to do, but you may consider taking some money off the table and, either moving it to fiat or even moving it to Bitcoin, because I do feel like they're only pumping because Ethereum is, okay? Basically, what I missed, and I really didn't see this until yesterday or maybe the day before, Ethereum is really in an upward sloping channel in RSI. And so if you look, we had a touch here, and then on the bottom, a touch here and a touch here. Had I noticed this sooner, I could have been longing Ethereum back in December, but I didn't. Hindsight's always 20/20. But I will be watching it now because we're getting to the top of this channel. And of course, like any channel, when you get to the top of it, I would expect it to have some type of correction, either down to the midpoint where it eventually, you know, bounces off of that, or even possibly all the way back to the bottom of the channel, which will be down around, you know, anywhere from 40 to 50 RSI, depending on when it hits it. Okay. So again, I expect a pretty deep retracement on Ethereum. I talked about this, I believe it was yesterday or the day before. This is a parabolic rise. Parabolic rises by textbook are normally going to correct about 80%. So depending on where the top comes in at, you know, we could be looking at correction all the way down to the 150 area on Ethereum. That's if we're in a bull market. Okay, that's if it corrects, and then, by the way, it wouldn't go straight down. I don't think it would probably, you know, do some shit like this. But essentially, if it corrects down here and then starts going back up, I think this might be a good place to long Ethereum. Right, I'll have to see what the market looks like when we get there. So I wanted to point that out. You know, that channel is definitely worth watching. You can often find these channels on coins, and guys, it's no different from that channel on the Bitcoin chart, the 3-day Bitcoin chart that made me a ton of money because I just watched it bounce around this channel over and over again. And it's just too bad that I lost confidence in the channel right here, because look at that perfect touch of the bottom of the channel. And if I had a long Bitcoin there, $6,600. But, you know, again, hindsight's always 20/20. The one thing that concerns me about some of these alts, and you have to go through and look at them yourself to find the ones I'm talking about, but some of these alts look like they're actually in a giant downtrend. Litecoin's one of them. Okay, when you look at the chart, people are super excited. They're like, "Oh yes, it broke this old high. It's in an uptrend. Life is good. This is gonna be so awesome." Blah 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 blah. Maybe it is. Maybe it's not. I really don't know. But what concerns me about it is this. Okay, we had a high back here of 98 RSI. We had a high right here of 92 RSI. We had a high right here of 77 RSI. And you essentially have a downtrend on RSI dating back to the summer of 2017, which means that this has basically been a 3-year downtrend on Litecoin. Okay, when you look at the chart, it's like, okay, no, it doesn't look like that. But when you look at the RSI, it's definitely painting a downtrend. So just something to be mindful of. If it can break north of this downward sloping line, I would expect to see some real fireworks on Litecoin, where we could really see some serious pump going on. Okay. When it breaks through that, I don't know. Okay, maybe it breaks through it on this pump. I seriously doubt it. Maybe it acts as resistance one more time, comes down for some type of correction, and then eventually just moonshots through that bad boy, right? Something like that. But I am going to watch that line. It's important to, you know, pay attention to those longer trend lines. They really do offer a lot of clues as to what might be happening. If we take a look, I'm going to blow this up so it's easier to do. At the bottom here, you know, we could even draw a line like this, and then what we get is this triangular shape. Okay, so what that would do for me is I would be watching if RSI gets back down here. I'd be looking for long setups, right, where I could get in on a really good long-term position trade on Litecoin. Okay, and by the way, just because it goes back down to the bottom doesn't mean price is going to go below its old low. It could be that price only pulls back, you know, 50-60% and still hits that bottom level. Again, this was pretty parabolic, not as parabolic as Ethereum, but I would still expect Litecoin to pull back somewhere between the, if I had to guess, somewhere between $45 and $55. Okay, some people are going to listen to that and be like, "James, you're crazy." You know what? People thought I was crazy when I said I was going to $40 in June too, but what happened? Went to $40, didn't it? Right? It's just Fibonacci, guys. It's not me. I'm not like, oh, I got a crystal ball, right? It's just basic technical analysis. When you get parabolic rises, you get parabolic retracements, okay? So that's what I'm seeing. That's kind of a big picture view, also some zoomed in picture views, some information on Bitcoin, some information on Litecoin, Ethereum. Again, take a look at the other altcoins, especially any altcoin that is using the Ethereum's blockchain, the ERC20 tokens or whatever they're called. Because again, when Ethereum pumps, they tend to pump. And when Ethereum dumps, or if Ethereum retraces really hard, you're probably going to see a lot of them retrace as well. Okay? All that being said, guys, please remember I am literally some guy sitting in a spare bedroom, so nothing in this video is financial advice. Nothing in this video is trade advice. You should always do your own due diligence before making any type of investment in cryptocurrency. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure and give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to check the description for links where you can follow me on TradingView, Twitter, where you can join my free Facebook group, and of course, where you can join my trading course if you'd like to learn technical analysis and how to trade for yourself. This is James with Crypto Common Sense, reminding you to please trade safe.